Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new review. And today we're going to be doing another spoilers discussion. This time we are talking Skeleton Crew once more, episode 6, titled Zero Friends Again, and directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, which I'll be talking about a little bit later on. But as always, doing these Star Wars spoiler discussions, as we mentioned, it's Skeleton Crew. I guess before we even get into that, Happy New Year. It's the 1st of January. These episodes are dropping weekly Wednesdays here in the UK. So we've had one on Christmas Day, we've had one on New Year's Day, and that's it until Easter. And then we get Andor straight after Easter, which is the return of the Messiah. Yes, that's right. Ben Mendelsohn returns as director Krennic this year. So that's what I'm excited to be talking about in April. But given it is January, we are still a few more months away. We've got a few more weeks of Skeleton Crew to watch, and we'll be talking about each of those. But I do want to hear from people at home. So please do comment below your thoughts on Skeleton Crew, whether you're enjoying the show, whether you're not enjoying the show. Now, this is a spoiler discussion. So please talk all things episode 6. Talk about your thoughts on the other episodes before. I'm really intrigued and excited to see what people are up to with this one. As you can tell, I'm doing today solo. It's a bit tricky this time of year for video stuff, so it is one of them where it does happen, but I'm hoping to get a couple of people on for at least the finale, if not next week as well. But let's also talk about social media, because we've put a couple of videos out this week. We did some top 10 rankings. Top 10 films of 2024, top 10 anticipated for 2025, and we've also released some shorts. So if you're curious about videos, that sort of thing, what we're working on, other films, I need to do a review for Nosferatu. You're always best off getting us on social medias, linktree.com/cinemasavvy. That will put you through to Facebook, Letterboxd, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, all the social medias we're on. It always just pop up on there. So I think that's rounding out the belated late intro. And now we've got the job of talking about episode 6 of Skeleton Crew. And I'm going to really quickly kickstart on my thoughts last week. I loved episode 5. I thought it was the best episode of the series so far. Obviously, we got the great finale, the final scene with, I keep calling him Jude Law, Jod, Dash, Captain Silvo, however many names he's going to keep getting. Great. I'm going to keep calling him Jude Law, the Pirate King, basically. We get a Crab King today, which is fun. I'm going to talk about that too, because there's a really cool connection there for those that didn't know. But we left last week in a really, really good cliffhanger. Jude Law's got the coordinates, he's got a lightsaber, and he is off. And we've got the kids who fell down the trapdoor. So essentially top and bottom. And I guess that's where we pick up today. We start off with the kids, and they are at the bottom of, I don't want to say the mountain, but the bottom of the trapdoor. They've basically gone on a slide through to the right to the end. Now, episode 6, my initial thoughts, I really liked today. We got really good character development on the 4 young characters. The show has been in dire need of that. I say dire need, that's a bit of a strong word. The show has needed to do a bit more development then, because we've had some really great interactions with Jude Law's character. We've learned a lot about him. But I personally feel that bar Neil, some of them have not necessarily developed as much, but they've not had their moment. They've not had that moment or episode of reflection or where it's a bit about them. I put KB as the thumbnail today. I'd say she's almost the core of today's episode, but there's actually equally as much going on. So just in terms to the writing, it's a really strong episode for these characters. You bring in Bryce Dallas Howard, who is would you call her a veteran Star Wars TV director at this point in time? Like she's working on, I think, almost every show that's shot in the States. And I'm more than happy for her to keep working on Star Wars shows. I'd love her to start a Star Wars film if the opportunity presented itself. But we kind of knew episode 6 was going to be her episode. And to me, that's a little bit more exciting. And I think I was with Sam Wofford on a video a couple of weeks ago where I mentioned that I feel that we'll get more development on Bryce's episode, maybe with KB. And that's kind of where we got to today. So I'm going to split this discussion up into 3 segments. I'm going to talk about women KB first. They've got their own arc with each other. We've got Fern and Neil, who have their own arc. And then we'll talk a bit about Jude Law / where we think it's heading for the final 2 episodes. So, as I said, it is a spoiler discussion, comment along. But let's go to the core. Let's talk about women KB. Now, this is probably the most interesting part of the episode. Not KB having the shutdown, but to split the kids up and to keep Wim away from Fern, because that's too easy to put the sort of 2 leads of each half together for an episode. You kind of want the the friend of the lead of each kid to go with one another. So KB partnered with Wim, Fern with Neil, and I thought it was a really good way of doing so. But the joint goal that each story they're trying to get back to the top to get to the ship, and how are they going to do that? Why have they fell out with the other, potentially Fern losing the trust of KB, Neil, who's not saying had enough of Wim at this point in time, but if you were Neil, you'd have probably left by now. So it was a really interesting way to do it. That they're both going for the same, a bit like R2D2 and C3PO on the Sandcrawler, isn't it? They're going to go their separate ways, but they're going to come together before they get to the destination. And I think the women KB stuff was really strong. And the reason I'm going to try and sort of speak this aloud as I'm thinking it, if you look at the paths the other people took, right, KB's got issues with her life support machine that it's corroding. If she was going up the stairs to the top, she's going to die. That's her story done. So she was right not to go with Fern. And at the same time, by putting the two apart, Fern realizes that she's been in the wrong the entire time. KB is right to an extent, but she's following Wim, who once again has messed up because he's following the crabs and has taken them to the Crab King. I'm going to call it that. I've got to say, Phil Tippett, if anyone's unfamiliar, one of the Island legends, Phil Tippett did the Crab King, I'm going to keep calling it, stop motion. It's amazing to see stop motion in a modern Star Wars thing. I know I've had it a fair amount in recent years, have more creature effects, and they've also looked amazing, but that was very cool to see his workshop. And I think Legacy VFX are involved. There's a few featurettes that were released before the show came out, but I just want to give a shout out to that because it looked amazing to see on a screen at home in the year 2025, I guess we can say now. But I really enjoyed the KB side of it, and we got a different side to Wim in turn, that we had to see him not just caring for somebody, but him doing the right thing, having to actually, rather than get them into trouble, he had to save someone's life, and it was as rewarding as him when he gets to the end of it and you get a great little moment with KB where she calls him Jedi. I loved the dynamic these two had, but more importantly, I like that KB got a lot more screen time. I think of the four, she'd been somewhat underused so far, and I kind of anticipated her getting the moment. And I think it was a really great way of doing that today, that it ended up being a life or death thing, not just a character blurting out, this is my story. Through actions, you were learning things. And I think it was a really interesting approach, and something we've not really seen in Star Wars, with a character needing to be reprogrammed per se to stay alive that isn't a droid, that's also a human. So I really appreciated that. I liked that. And in turn with that, we get the stuff with Fern and Neil, which I also enjoyed, because Neil on screen is never a problem for anybody. But the opposite situation is they're climbing up the ladder, but Neil doesn't. He's a different species. He's not human. He's not like Fern. He's not as quick. He can't be as quick. The quicker she goes, the more dangerous it is for him. So she has to learn to somewhat slow down, not just not psychologically, not just physically, but mentally as well, that she is starting to care for other people other than herself. And that's always been her approach from, you go back to episode 1, where she's challenging people in races and stuff. She's always been selfish, as has Wim. That's why the two of them work so well as leads with each other. But it's interesting for her that she would have to then cater toward Neil, and you wonder, would Wim have done the same today? I don't know, but he wasn't in that situation with Neil. He was in a different situation. So I've really liked how this episode was written. I liked the direction. I think we're at a point now with this, when I say series, I'm talking about like the Star Wars on TV. If Bryce Dallas Howard's doing an episode, it's safe hands. She's very good at what she does. And it almost, I'm not saying this is the best episode of the series. I think this might have been the best episode for character development. I personally still prefer episode 5. But Bryce Dallas Howard feels like it's Bryce's episode. It's going to be a big moment. It's going to be an important episode. And she's kind of nailed that responsibility now. As I said, I'd like to see her do a lot more within Star Wars. I know she's directing her first feature at the moment. I'd like to see her do more filmmaking in general. If I'm honest, she's a great filmmaker. But this one today, and I'm going to talk about Jude Law, we get a great pirate sequence where, very Pirates of the Caribbean-esque, we have a pirate's court. We've got a plasma sand timer. Second one I've seen this week, we're doing a Harry Potter rewatch, so we're on Half-Blood Prince, and it had the whole slow down sand thing, but I liked the pirate stuff. I have liked it each week. It's very safe. It's very easy to watch, but piracy is a fun thing. Out of context, that sounds terrible to talk about film and TV, but within Star Wars, I mean, I like what they're doing with the pirate stuff so far, but ultimately, Episode 6 is a bridge getting us into the final act of the show, getting us to the end where we've got Jude, who is plotting, as an understatement. His plan was to get the crew on his side. His plan's to keep himself alive, obviously. And he said that he's going to get them all to Atatin, and they can all have their own treasures. They can live their wildest dreams. And he is alive for now. He survived the airlock. The question poses from that point is, do we trust Jude Law's character to not kill them all? Do we trust Jude Law's character, who doesn't do anything with the lightsaber, which I know was a bit of a tease last week? Whether that's going to come in handy in a few weeks or not, I don't know. But there's a lot of questions to be had. And I like the idea that he is somewhat unpredictable at this point, because I do see him turning on all the pirates and going for himself. It's a pirate thing. He's a captain. They betrayed him. He's going to continue to betray them. I like that pirate stuff does that. The more a pirate thing has sort of things flipping, I don't mind. That being said, I'm curious about what his plan is, or what Bruce's plan is, who, he calls him a great, I think, first mate or lieutenant or something, which I thought was a great line. But there's obviously a plan in motion there. But come to the end of the episode, they are on the way to Atatin. That much is true. Like, that's their destination now. Then we've got the kids. And through the different story mediums, we have the four of them reunited, each of them realizing they've been in the wrong. Again, great character moments. KB has the coordinates to Atatin as well. So all they need to do is get onto the ship to then, in turn, get to Atatin, setting up what could be a great two-part finale. I know, obviously, we're getting one each week, but the kids are on their way, the adults are on their way, pirates are on their way, the parents are waiting for them. It's going to be really exciting to see how they do this next week, what the plan is. Are we going to episode them in space? Are we going to avoid them going to Atatin until the finale? Or are we going to get maybe something before? But obviously a very key part of this is what happened to the ship, the Onyx Cinder. Don't press the red button, almost a nuclear sign. I love this. I don't know if Star Wars has done this before, but we essentially had a sleek, almost like Naboo-esque starship, like a yacht type thing, hidden within a grumpy, battered, old, war-torn rigged ship for weaponry. And I loved this. It was almost like a Russian doll, where these pirates have had this legacy for so long of this cruiser that they've got all these weapons attached, they've got all this armor, everything's been put onto the ship. But underneath it was something far better, something that's probably going to be quicker, sleeker, but at the same time, it's not going to have weapons. I'm really excited to see what it means, not just to have a cool new ship design, but to see what was the implementation of all that stuff being thrown off. It was a great little sequence. I love the visuals on it. Again, you've got competent directors doing it. And like so much of this show, it's asked more questions whilst waiting. It's asked more questions whilst answering a couple of others. We still know we don't know the secrets. We don't know what the money's going to entail. But now we're wondering is, why was that ship covered? Why didn't SM-33 want that button to be pressed at all? Was it protect that? Is there other things that are going to come in? Is it now going to be known to people? Was it a cloaking device? Who knows? There's so many new questions that come just from this last 2 minutes of the episode of the ship. I think that's great. And the fact that 6 episodes in a show is still asking us these questions. Now, I do have a criticism of the episode, and it's a strange one, but I really didn't like last week's cliffhanger, how essentially nothing happened this week, because obviously a lot happened, but it didn't feel like there was any reactionary moments to last week. The lightsaber tease, I'm not saying I need everything answered on a postcard, but it was just suddenly SM-33 and Jude Law, they've got loads of treasure, they're on the way to the ship, done. I would have liked an extra scene last week to have seen what happened in that cave. Okay, yeah, we know he's taking treasure and whatnot, but it felt shorter this week. I know that Star Wars on TV has very much been how long is a piece of string type argument, that some episodes are great when they're 45 minutes, some episodes are great when they're 30, sometimes it's a happy in between. And I know that Star Wars is doing it wrong at times, where some episodes have been too short, some have been too long, and it's really disrupted a seasonal flow. I don't think it's the case for Skeleton Crew, but I do feel like we were maybe missing a scene at the start of today that I think could have come in really handy, or maybe a scene of the kids reacting to what had happened prior to that. it's a minor criticism from me, but it is just something that's been in the back of my mind, having watched it sort of first thing this morning, thinking about tonight doing this video. So again, it's interesting. We'll talk about. Obviously, we've got nice to talk about with at the moment. But as I said, we are hoping to get a couple more people on for some of these discussions. As I said, I'm not just going to drag out spoiler discussions for the sake of spoiler discussions. Everyone's got their own lives. It's New Year's Day. Some people will talk 2-3 hours about Star Wars when they hate it, which I still find deranged. But that's probably going to round out everything I have to say on today's episode. As I said, I thought it was a solid episode. It was a great episode for character development, but at the same time, it sometimes means it's going to be a short episode talking about it, which it absolutely is today. But I do think today has been not only great character development, but great setup ready for the finale, the final act, which I'm hoping is going to really kickstart next week. As I said, do we get an episode in space? Do we get a short episode again? I know Lee Isaac Chung's directing next week, which is quite exciting. I really enjoyed his episode before. As I mentioned, we had Bryce Dallas Howard back today, which was great to see her involved with Star Wars again. So, yeah, there's not too much more for me to add. So I'm going to delicately hand over to the comments. So please do comment your thoughts on Skeleton Crew, whether you're enjoying it, whether you sort of phased out, whether you're saving them all to binge toward the end. I am curious to know what people think of this. If you're a fan of Star Wars, I mentioned Andor earlier, 2025, there's going to be some more Star Wars stuff. I'm not going to Celebration in Japan anymore, so I won't have direct coverage from the festival from the convention, but there could be ways to do stuff around that. As I mentioned, Andor's around that point. We've got Mandalorian and Grogu coming out next year, so we're going to get trailers this year. There's going to be some more Star Wars stuff. So if you're a fan of Star Wars, we will have plenty of Star Wars stuff. We're also doing a lot more shorts now. We clipped some episodes down. Maybe we'll do some more videos that are designed to be shorts for people. If you want to find out more about them, then you can head over to our social medias, linktree.com/cinemasavvy. That'll pop you through to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky for all your social media needs. We do post on all of them. So that's the best way to find us, to find out what we're working on. I mentioned I need to do a review for Nosferatu. I saw that earlier today. I loved it. I've got a lot to talk about with that. Me and Tate will be going live in the coming days for what we watched. We'll be going over everything we saw in December. Very, very busy month. Catch up to a lot of 2024 films. And as I said, there's a few top 10 videos out. So if you're curious, we've got short versions of each about a minute long, and then we've got a bit more in-depth ones about 10 minutes long. So if you're looking forward to finding out what other films are coming out this year, then do stick around. There's a lot more TV this year. We've got The Last of Us Season 2 coming as well, which is going to be great. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you all so much for watching, for supporting us throughout the last year. We're wishing you a very happy new year, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.